May 10th, 1940, Haarlem, Netherlands. The morning bells of St. Bavikerk echo over the red-tiled rooftops, but they can't drown out the drone of engines overhead. Luftwaffe bombers sweep across the sky, casting jagged shadows on the narrow canals below. Windows rattle, bicycles skid to a halt, and fishermen freeze mid-cast. By noon, German boots are marching across Dutch cobblestones, and in the doorway of a modest apartment above a furniture workshop, a 13-year-old girl named Freddy Nanda Decker Overstegen watches silently. She clutches the railing, her knuckles white, as columns of Wehrmacht soldiers rumble past on motorcycles and troop carriers. Next to her stands her older sister Truus, barely 15, and their mother Trientje, a strong-willed communist who already knows what occupation means. Within days, Nazi banners hang from the town hall. Jewish shops are smashed and marked. Radio sets are confiscated. Dutch policemen salute German officers. Curfews are posted. And the streets begin to whisper about neighbors disappearing, about ration cards vanishing, about collaborators selling names for a few Reichsmarks. For most children, occupation means fear and hunger. For Freddy, it means something else, a question whispered by her mother at the kitchen table. If your country is taken, are you supposed to just watch? The girls say nothing. Their father left years earlier. Their mother raised them to hate injustice, to hide Jewish refugees in the attic, to see occupation not as inevitability, but as an insult. And in 1941, the insult becomes too sharp to ignore. Summer 1941. Freddy has just turned 14. The war has carved away childhood faster than any birthday ever could. Schools are monitored, textbooks rewritten, and even bicycles are requisitioned by German patrols. One afternoon, as Freddy helps repair chairs in her uncle's shop, 3 strangers arrive. 2 men and a woman, clothed in plain civilian coats, maps tucked under their arms. Haarlem's communist resistance is still small, cells hidden inside bookshops, union halls and backrooms of cafes. The man in front introduces himself under an alias and explains why they've come. They know the Overstegen family hides refugees. They know the sisters can ride bicycles like courier pigeons. And they need girls, because no one suspects girls. Freddy listens, eyes wide but unblinking. Truus asks the only question that matters. Will it hurt people? The woman nods once. Truus turns to Freddy. Freddy nods back. Hours later, the girls pedal through Haarlem's dusk streets to an abandoned farm on the outskirts of town. The farm isn't abandoned. Not really. Inside, resistance fighters train in silence. They are carpenters, printing press operators, students and former soldiers. They practice firing pistols with suppressors fashioned in workshops. They study maps of patrol routes. They memorize names of collaborators. Freddy's small hands tremble as they place a Browning FN pistol in her palm. It's cold, heavy and real. She doesn't fire it that night. She doesn't have to. Just holding it is enough to redraw the world. Over the coming months, the sisters carry illegal newspapers and ration cards, deliver coded messages, and smuggle Jewish children into safe houses. Freddy rides her bicycle through alleys and courtyards like a ghost, too young to search, too innocent to question. But resistance work is evolving. The Gestapo tightens surveillance, collaborators get bolder, Dutch Jews begin to vanish. By early 1943, Haarlem's resistance faces a grim calculation. As long as certain men live, others will continue to die. And that is when Hannie Schaft enters their lives. March 1943. A candlelit cellar beneath a printing shop. Hannie, red-haired, sharp-eyed law student at the University of Amsterdam, has been expelled for refusing to sign loyalty oaths to the Reich. Standing across from the sisters, she speaks without bravado. We need girls who can lure officers. They won't follow us, but they'll follow you. Freddy's heart stutters. She's still only 14. But Hannie explains the tactic. A bicycle, A smile, a question for directions, a suggestion of company. Quick, surgical, silent, no firefights, no reprisals against civilians nearby. The decision is horrifying. It is also necessary. Freddie does not relish violence. She fears it, but she fears submission more. That night she returns home and sits on the edge of her bed, staring at her shoes. Tryntje enters quietly. "Do you know what you're doing?" the mother asks. Freddie hesitates. "No," she whispers. "Good," Tryntje replies. "Only fools think they do in wartime." From then on, Freddie rides her bicycle with purpose. A simple black frame, narrow handlebars, leather satchel strapped to the back. To German officers stationed in Haarlem, she looks like every other Dutch girl. Skinny, young, harmless. Men smile at her on corners. Some wave, some whistle, some follow. It is astonishing how quickly a uniform makes a man careless. Soon whispers circulate among the occupation forces about ambushes in the dunes, about officers vanishing, about collaborators found dead in gardens and alleyways. No one knows who is doing it. No one imagines children. Freddie pedals through the city with the same blank expression as everyone else living under occupation. But beneath the facade, a machine is forming. One part innocence, one part precision, all hidden behind a pair of dark eyes on a bicycle. And before the war is over, dozens of Nazi officers and collaborators will follow her into darkness. April 12th, 1943. Haarlem, Netherlands. Rain hisses against the pavement as Freddie pedals slowly along the River Spaan. Water beads on her handlebars, dripping onto the frayed hem of her skirt. Behind her, a Wehrmacht lieutenant in a long grey coat smokes a cigarette beneath the awning of a bakery, sheltered from the downpour. Freddie glances once, casual, fleeting, and turns the corner. She stops her bicycle, adjusts her front tire, pretending to check the chain. The lieutenant watches. He steps off the curb, flicks his cigarette into the gutter, and begins to approach. Freddie pretends not to notice until his voice breaks the rain. "Fräulein, are you all right?" His German is smooth, almost gentle. Freddie looks up, blinking water from her lashes. "I'm lost," she murmurs in Dutch, adding a tremor to her voice. She gestures east. "Station, this way." The officer switches to broken Dutch. Ja, I show you. You follow?" Freddie nods quickly and mounts her bike. The lieutenant strides beside her, boots splashing through puddles. She pedals just fast enough to stay ahead, guiding him toward the old Cleverlaan district, and beyond it, the woods near Haarlemmerhout. Her stomach coils, her legs tremble, but her pace remains steady. The alley mouth opens into a tree-lined lane. The rain softens under the canopy. The lieutenant buttons his coat and smiles, charmed, unguarded, convinced he is in control. Then the lane curves. 3 shadows detach from the darkness. Truus, Hanny, and a young machinist named Dirk, all armed with pistols wrapped in oilcloth. There's no shouted warning, no heroic last words. 3 suppressed shots crack through the rain. The lieutenant collapses into wet leaves, his cap tumbling across the dirt. Freddie doesn't watch him die. She turns her bicycle around and pedals away, water streaming down her cheeks, rain, tears, or both, impossible to tell. That night, she vomits behind the workshop. She's shaking so badly she can't untie her shoelaces. Truus holds her shoulders and whispers, "If we don't do it, someone else will die instead. Jews, children, anyone." Freddie nods, but it doesn't help. Not that night. Yet within a week the occupation posts new decrees, restrictions on German officers travelling alone, increased patrols, curfews tightened. The resistance reads these as proof. Freddie's lure worked. The Dutch underground assigns her more. Autumn 1943, Haarlem. Freddie learns to play her role with unnerving skill. Some days she plays dumb, asking for directions. Other days she plays flirtatious, twirling a lock of hair. Sometimes she pretends to be frightened by curfew, asking for an escort home. These men trained for war, never suspect that the real battlefield is unfolding in their imaginations. One officer, a Dutch police collaborator carrying a Mauser pistol, follows her into a garden path bordered by tall hedges. When Truus steps out from behind a rain barrel, the man's face collapses into dread, too late to scream. Freddy hears only one shot before she's already around the corner. Another time, a Luftwaffe Feldwebel hands her a chocolate bar on the canal bridge before trailing her into a narrow service road where Hanni waits atop a scaffolding. He dies with the chocolate still in his coat. The operations are not random. Each target is selected. Intelligence officers, recruiters, Dutch informants, men whose deaths will slow deportations and executions. The girls on bicycles become ghosts in Haarlem's underworld. No one knows how many they help eliminate. Some say dozens, some say scores. The occupation authorities suspect rival power struggles or criminal gangs. They never imagine children. But the work takes a cost. Freddy stops sleeping through the night. Gunshots echo behind her eyelids. Faces stare up from leaves and alley stones. One evening at a safe house, after a mission gone wrong, left a comrade wounded, Freddy mutters to Hanni, "What if I'm damned for this?" Hanni lights a cigarette, her red hair glowing in the lamplight. "In war," she says quietly, "hell is already here. We decide who burns." Winter 1944. Hunger winter. By now Freddy is 15. The Netherlands starves beneath German blockade. People boil tulip bulbs for soup, tear chair legs apart for firewood, sell wedding rings for a heel of bread. Freddy keeps riding, though her legs are thin, her coat hanging off her shoulders like a borrowed garment. German morale plummets. Officers travel in pairs, then trios. Collaborators whisper of phantom assassins. Posters with skull motifs warn against aiding resistance groups. But nothing stops the girls. One bitter morning, Freddy and Truus cycle south toward Bloemendaal, where intelligence says a Gestapo agent is expected to pass on foot. The plan is simple: slow him, divert him, and let Dirk handle the shot from the dunes. Freddy rehearses her lines silently, breath fogging the air. The agent appears right on schedule, long leather coat, peaked cap casting a shadow over his eyes. Freddy pedals past and brakes abruptly, feigning a broken chain. The agent pauses. Curiosity, annoyance, opportunity mixing in his gaze. He approaches. Freddy's voice quivers perfectly. "Do you know the way to, The gunshot never comes. A second Gestapo man steps out from behind a tree, pistol drawn. It's an ambush, a reverse lure. Freddy's mouth goes dry. Truus freezes. The agent reaches for Freddy's arm, just as a civilian van barrels around the bend, horn blaring. The agents leap aside. Freddy jumps on her bike, pedals violently, lungs ripping with cold as Truus follows. Bullets snap through branches. Bark explodes. But the girls vanish into the hedgerows. They don't slow down until Haarlem's church bells toll noon. Freddy collapses against a wall, chest heaving, tears freezing on her cheeks. Truus grabs her hand. "Next time," Truus gasps, "no more Bloemendaal." Freddy doesn't laugh, but she does stand back up, because the work is not over. March 1944. Haarlem. The church bells have barely stopped ringing when rumors begin to spread across Haarlem about a new German list. Names scrawled in ink, marked for detention or execution. It includes professors, union men, Jewish families in hiding, and suspected resistance contacts. At the center of those whispers is a single name spoken only in corridors and back rooms. Hanni Schaft. The Germans call her Das Mädchen mit den roten Haaren, the red-haired girl. They don't have a photograph, but they have descriptions. Sharp, defiant, refuses to run. For Freddy and Truus, Hanni is not a rumor or a legend. She is their comrade, their mentor, their anchor in a collapsing world. One evening, the girls meet Hanni in a cramped flat above a tailor shop. Lamps are covered with black cloth to block light from the windows. Hanni unrolls a bundle of documents, eyes smudged with fatigue. "These are collaborators," she says, tapping the paper. Police informers, interrogators, and these, she points to another column, are Jewish children we need to move. Freddie scans the names. She recognizes one, a Dutch officer who frequents a cafe near the river, always bragging loudly about his new sidearm and his German friends. She's seen him hand envelopes to uniformed men. What happens to these ones? Freddie asks, pointing to the collaborator list. Hanny doesn't look up. You know, she says quietly. There is no satisfaction in her voice, just resignation. Later that same month, Freddie watches from across the street as the Dutch officer she recognized stumbles out of the cafe, tipsy and humming, coat flapping in the wind. She flicks her bicycle bell twice. The signal. Truus emerges from an alley, dressed neatly, hair curled, looking every inch the harmless young woman. The officer lifts his cap in a drunken greeting, amused by his luck. "Evening, ladies," he slurs, switching between Dutch and German. "Out after curfew?" Freddie bites her cheek to keep her expression soft. Truus replies with a shy smile, "Only if you arrest us." The officer smirks, emboldened, and that is all Freddie needs. She mounts her bicycle and pedals slowly toward the canal path, glancing over her shoulder just long enough to make sure he follows. Truus falls back, giving them distance. Halfway down the path, Hanny steps from behind a line of trees, pistol raised. One shot, crisp, precise. The officer falls face first into the dirt. Freddie flinches, but she doesn't stop. They move quickly, pockets searched for documents, weapon removed, body dragged behind shrubs. It takes less than 2 minutes. The war has taught them to compress morality into seconds. When they regroup at the safe house, Dirk pours them water from a chipped pitcher. "That's one less name on the German list," he mutters. Freddie stares at the table. Her hands are steady now, too steady for a 15-year-old girl. Spring 1944. A different kind of mission. Not every task involves gunfire. One day the sisters are ordered to travel north and pose as children, essence, to escort Jewish toddlers to safe farms. Freddie ties a ribbon in a girl's hair and walks her along the canal like an older cousin. The child doesn't know she's being saved from a train to Westerbork. Freddie doesn't tell her. She just holds her hand tightly. Another week they sabotage a railway line, loosening bolts and placing metal scraps across the tracks, so German munitions cars derail 5 kilometers outside Haarlem. Freddie doesn't watch the crash, but she hears the explosion miles away, bouncing off factory walls like thunder. And sometimes the work is quieter still, delivering forged ration cards, radio parts, coded messages. Dutch police search everyone, but they rarely search teenage girls. Freddie hides documents inside her bicycle handlebars, rolled so tight they're invisible unless dismantled. No one ever finds them. Yet the danger grows sharper. July 1944. Haarlem Police Headquarters. Arrests spike across the city. Informants trade names for rewards. Bread, cigarettes, promises of mercy. One night, a captured resistance courier breaks under torture and leaks information about addresses. At dawn, Gestapo cars screech through the streets, doors are kicked in, men dragged out in shirt sleeves. Freddie listens from an attic hideout as engines growl and boots slam staircases. At any moment, someone could call her name. Instead, they call Hanny's. She doesn't get arrested, not yet, but she becomes the most hunted woman in Haarlem. Posters appear with text reading, "Wanted, red-haired terrorist." Freddie sees one being nailed to a post. The soldier doesn't glance at her. Why would he? She's just a girl with a bicycle. But Freddie knows something chilling. If they ever catch Hanny, they will not treat her as a girl. They will treat her as a spy. The sisters beg her to bleach her hair, to wear glasses, to blend. Hanny refuses at first. Pride or principle, no one knows. Eventually, after more close calls, she gives in. The fiery red disappears beneath brown dye, but the danger remains. December 1944. The war is turning. The Allies are in France, pushing east. Soviet armies crush divisions on the Eastern Front. Everyone knows Germany is dying, but dying animals fight hardest. Freddy's missions become more frantic, less planning, more desperation. And then, one snowy morning, something unimaginable happens. Hanny doesn't arrive at the safe house. She never misses meetings, ever. Dirk bursts into the room, breathless, face white. "They got her," he whispers. For Freddy, the room tilts. Truls grabs the wall, no one speaks, no one breathes. Hanny has been captured, and the Germans do not let symbols live. From the perspective of the occupying Nazi forces, the Polish underground was a serious threat, organized, resourceful, and increasingly bold. Yet no one expected that a shy teenager riding a bicycle would become one of the most effective weapons against them. What the Germans saw as harmless childhood activity, cycling, delivering bread, and collecting flowers, was in reality part of a growing network of sabotage carried out by women and youths, who were the least suspected. Zosia was not originally trained for combat. Her early role was observational, but as the war progressed and the underground expanded, couriers were in high demand. Men were frequently targeted, arrested, or sent to labor camps. Young girls, on the other hand, moved through checkpoints with astonishing ease. What made Zosia's bicycle so dangerous wasn't a hidden gun or explosive. It was the intelligence it transported. Maps, orders, schedules of troop movements, locations of ammunition depots, lists of informants. These documents meant life or death for resistance fighters. Each time Zosia pedaled across the city or from village to village, she unknowingly determined the fate of dozens of soldiers. A train carrying Nazi officers might leave a station at noon. A resistance unit, armed with explosives and precise timing, would destroy it minutes later. The Germans would report it as an accident or terrorist attack, never suspecting that a silent teenage courier tied it all together. Before long, sabotage missions based on Zosia's deliveries began to pile up. 2 officers' cars detonated on mined roads. A train carrying Wehrmacht reinforcements derailed near Lublin. A meeting of SS officials ambushed outside Warsaw. An ammunition convoy blown up, killing dozens. Zosia never pulled a trigger, never set a fuse, and yet Nazi reports complained of unseen saboteurs who knew too much. She was that unseen element. The most effective tactic in any war is camouflage, and Zosia's camouflage was innocence. German troops joked with her, waved her through barricades, and even helped fix her bicycle chain once. To them, she was just another hungry Polish kid trying to survive the occupation. But to the underground, she was invaluable. Her bicycle became part of a larger network of couriers, many of them teenage girls who did not think of themselves as heroes, just as people doing what they could. None of them grasped how strategically important they were until much later. In war, not all weapons explode. Some simply ride quietly through the streets, unnoticed. For months, Zosia's missions were executed flawlessly, but no network stays invisible forever. In early 1943, German intelligence intercepted fragments of underground communication. They discovered that sabotage operations were too coordinated to be random. Someone, likely multiple couriers, was providing detailed logistical information. The Gestapo began monitoring telegraph lines, inspecting trains, and interrogating suspected resistance members. But the key breakthrough came from something far simpler: observation. A German officer in Warsaw noticed that certain messages seemed to follow the arrival of young cyclists from nearby villages. It was a faint pattern, but enough to raise suspicion. Soon, checkpoints tightened. Soldiers inspected bags, newspapers, and even bicycle frames. Underground couriers started being arrested. Many never returned. One spring afternoon, Zosia was carrying what would later be considered one of her most critical messages: a detailed schedule of an SS planning meeting that would later be targeted by the Polish resistance. It could determine the outcomes of attacks across multiple districts. As she neared a bridge guarded by new SS units, she slowed down, checkpoint ahead. Normally, she breezed through roadblocks with a nod or a polite smile. But this time, soldiers were making every civilian dismount and submit to inspection. Zosia's heart pounded. In the lining of her coat were 2 rolled notes written in microscopic script. If found, it would be over, not just for her, but for dozens of fighters depending on the intel. She calculated quickly. Turning around would draw attention, but so would passing through with a trembling face. As she approached the line, her bicycle chain suddenly snapped, sending her tumbling to the ground. Papers scattered, just scraps of old newspaper she intentionally carried to create confusion. One soldier laughed, another muttered, "Kinda kid," under his breath. They helped her stand up, fixed her chain, and waved her through with pity instead of suspicion. Zosia rode away, tears of adrenaline streaming down her cheeks. That broken chain, an accident, likely saved her life. Despite moments like that, the Gestapo eventually realized that couriers were young, mostly female, often on bicycles, rarely searched. They began offering rewards for information. Posters went up warning civilians that helping the terrorist underground was punishable by death. Surveillance increased specifically on cyclists. Several of Zosia's fellow couriers were captured. One broke under torture, revealing routes and drop-off points. Raids followed. Zosia only escaped because she had switched routes the day before. Realizing the danger, the resistance leadership gave her an order: stop. She had done more than enough. Her missions had contributed to operations that killed dozens of Nazi officers and disrupted entire supply networks. By now, her innocence was too valuable to risk losing. Zosia cried, not for fear, but because she didn't want to stop helping. When the war finally ended in 1945, the world was trying to make sense of horrors on a scale never seen before. Soldiers told their stories, generals wrote their memoirs, monuments were built to honor battles, but girls on bicycles were forgotten. Zosia returned to an ordinary life. She worked, married, raised children. For decades, she almost never spoke of the war. In her mind, she was not a hero, just a child who did what she could. It wasn't a tea until historians studying resistance courier networks interviewed survivors in the 1980s and 90s that Zosia Ace role surfaced. Her innocent bicycle had enabled sabotage operations that killed dozens of Nazi officers and disrupted their regional command. But she had never even known the scale of her impact until old age.